Glad to have you along once again. As always, we are joined by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes such places as Where We Are, Church Key, Downstairs, Birch and Barley. What is on tap this week?
Well, this week it's going to be a brand new collaboration beer from New Belgium Brewing Company. They have, of course, their Lips of Faith series, which we've talked about in the past. A series of innovative, kind of nuanced beers that they come out with occasionally throughout the year. This one is really cool because it's a collaboration with a brewery that is nearly impossible to find in the United States and is outstanding. And that's called Alpine Beer Company. They're a 10-year-old brewery and now pub out in Alpine, California, so inland from San Diego. Their beers are highly sought after and like I said, almost impossible to get outside of the San Diego area. So New Belgium is kind of doing a kindness for us this time around by inviting them in and brewing a beer that Alpine brews quite well, and that's a really super hoppy IPA, and thus it is called Super IPA. So New Belgium, Alpine Beer Company, Super IPA, coming to us from Fort Collins, Colorado at the New Belgium Brewery. This beer is about 9% alcohol. They quoted at 99 IBUs, International Bittering Units, which means it's going to be really bitter and really hoppy. You can see even now it's got a very good golden color, indicative that it's highly attenuated, meaning that a lot of the malt sugar has been converted, and so there's less leftover malt sweetness to kind of balance against the bitterness. So it's going to be West Coast, clean, really intensely bitter, and aromatically we can expect a lot of kind of resinous tropical fruit notes. It's brewed with 4 hops and then dry hop. So into the kettle they're adding Amarillo, which gets you this huge like orangey quality from the hops. The Columbus hops, which are very green and dank and resinous and intensely bitter. Simcoe for pine, a little bit of grapefruit, and then Centennial hops. So floral, bright, sweet fruited qualities as well. These are all Pacific Northwest hops, these big, huge American hops that give us these Imperial IPAs. So, you want to taste it?
Yes. Twist my arm. Again, one of those beers where when it was just sitting here,
wafting.
Wafting, exactly.
It's great. It's intensely hoppy, and it's like fresh hoppy qualities on the palate too. I mean, almost has this really fresh green quality that's borderline like kind of scallion-y or something on the back end, but hugely fruity and tropically fruited. Great pine and aromatic to it. It's great. And the alcohol's there too to balance a little bit. There's a little bit of sweetness from the alcohol as well.
If you've ever been to one of those places where they help you make your own beer, and you measure out the hop pellets, and they say, hey, pop one in your mouth, and, you know, very concentrated, those hop pellets. I'm not saying this is like that, but it's just the right amount. It's very intense, but not, it just stops, I think, just short of being too far.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's like you get as much hop character in there without making it just taste like hop juice or something like that. I mean, it's hugely complex too, and it's exactly what it tastes very much like a New Belgium beer, but also very much like an Alpine beer. One of my favorites IPAs in the country is called Pure Hoppiness from Alpine Beer Company. So
that's saying something.
Yeah, and so and this beer is in some ways reminiscent of that. So unless you're going to San Diego anytime soon, or the brewery out near San Diego in Alpine, California, I would definitely pick this beer up because it's basically giving us some Alpine beer that we can't normally get.
Now, you were telling me before we started here about a retreat you just took to Dogfish Head out in Delaware, and I purchased from Dogfish Head one of these Randall Jr. Infuser type of things.
Oh, you got one of those?
Yeah, and I promptly...
Does it work?
I promptly broke it after trying. I can't really say for sure, but I bought online some little bags of hops, and my point here is, how do breweries like this, I mean, you talk about all the hops they're adding, how do breweries like this have hops delivered? Does a dump truck come in and they just dump it out the back? Or, it's got to be
the hops coming. Oh, I mean, they're purchased in pallets. I mean, there's literally, but they're all airtight bags that come in boxes that are palletized or even container sized. I mean, that's how they're getting them. Now, most brewers use pellets, which are basically hops that have been milled and then pulverized together and pelletized. Some, like Victory, Sierra Nevada, exclusively use whole cone hops, so they haven't been processed at all. In the meantime, to your point about the Randall and things like that, first of all, Randall is really cool. It's an instrument that the ever innovative Dogfish Head guys, Sam Clagione is a good buddy of mine, came up with, where it's basically like this vessel sitting outside of a beer, a keg, for instance. And so you take typically a hoppy beer, like 90 Minute or something, and you could pull it out of the keg, and it goes through this vessel that's packed full of hops. And so it will give it even more intense hoppy characteristics, primarily in the nose, because the later we add hops to beer in the process, the more aromatics we get, the earlier, the more bitterness. So before I said that this has, and it does, Amarillo, Centennial, Simcoe, and Columbus hops. They're adding all those in at different points throughout the boil, the kettle portion of the brewing. But then post-fermentation, after the beer has been fermented out and it's conditioning in stainless steel tanks, they're adding those same 4 hop varietals in. So as it's conditioning and kind of coming together, dropping bright, particulate matter is coming down, those hops are further cold steeping, so to speak, in the beer, and that's largely why you have this giant pop of aromatic hoppiness.
I think this is the 3rd Lips of Faith series beer we've had. I mean, I can only speak from my own experience. But
yeah, we did La Folie, Tart Lychee, and then this one, yeah.
If you see Lips of Faith on the shelf at the store, you got to give it a shot. I mean, it's really some amazing beers.
They're always great, and then again, this is the cool thing about craft brewing. You can get bigger as a craft brewer, size-wise, and not sacrifice your quality. And there's not many industries that are like that, and that's why you see places like New Belgium getting so big that they're building another plant in North Carolina, right down the street, and so literally kind of right down the street from Sierra Nevada, doing the same. But they're keeping the quality at such a level that it's great for the consumer. And I bring this up because things like Lips of Faith are actually pretty available. You know, we talk about a lot. Some of the beers we do on this segment are really rare, but then others are somewhat rare, but you'll see them in other places. And I think that's one of my favorite things about the Lips of Faith series is they're amazing beers, and you're not going to see it once and then never see it again. You'll see it. A number of stores will actually have it. So New Belgium's able to produce it in more with a little bit more volume than other breweries could for a beer of this style.
We've also talked a lot about collaborations in the past few months. When do these guys sleep? I mean, they are. There's constantly something new and good coming down the pike from all these breweries.
Well, I think one of the things is that the brewing staffs of these places are enormous. You know, in the old days, you kind of associate, like, there's the brewmaster owner guy. That's, you know, and in the case of somebody like Rob Todd from Allagash, when he started back in '95, he was the owner and the brewer and the one-man show behind it, just brewing Allagash White all day long. You know what I mean? So nowadays, though, there's lots of brewers, there's lots of creative people involved with these endeavors. So the work gets spread around a little bit, and these collaborations are often an opportunity for some of the other brewers to get involved as well. And I will say that, you know, having now done, I think we've completed 7 collaboration beers with Blue Jacket, the brewery that we're opening and restaurant and bar down by Nationals Park in 2013. We've done a number of collaborations because we, of course, don't have our own brewery yet. It's amazing what you can get done through email beforehand. I mean, you should see these conversations. It's fascinating. You know, you'll have, like when we did the Cigar City Funky Buddha Blue Jacket collaboration, we had like 5 people just shooting emails back and forth in a period of like an hour. And by the end of it, we had this beer ready to go. So really, really driven, really ideas just come flying out, and you kind of get it together, and then the brewing takes much longer than the conceptualizing.
I hadn't really thought of that. 20 years ago, you'd be racking up a bunch of long-distance phone bills.
Yeah, I know.
For those of you who know what a long-distance phone call is.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you know, and then next would be like faxing maybe, but yeah, now we can get that done. But you know, it's a great thing. The collaborations are amazing, and you know, if nothing else, what's really fun is when a brewery that we see around here, like New Belgium, that distributes in DC now, of course, and Northern Virginia, Maryland, they can bring a brewery that's well known but hard to find kind of to us, which is kind of a new thing for collaborations I hadn't really thought about before. But that can be so fun. You can have beers from breweries you may never have had before, or maybe never have a chance to have again.
Tricky. Pairing this, I know what you're going to say, but not everyone might.
Sure. Well, so
I think I know what you're going to say.
One of the greatest ironies about beer and food pairing is that, and I love it dearly. I think that beer and food are beautiful together for many, many reasons. But as with wine, beer has its Achilles heel. So not every beer goes great with food, or a number of foods, just like not every wine goes great with every food or a number of foods. So, and they're actually similar. So with the wine, tannins are a problem, and because they are so intense on the palate that they can overwhelm lots of foods. The drying, kind of puckering, oaky qualities and grape skin qualities we get on the palate. Well, hops in beer are that kind of thing as well. They're the Achilles heel. So unfortunately, the most popular styles, literally 1 and 2 in the country right now, they're selling the most, are IPAs and pale ales. So the irony here is that these IPAs and pale ales sell more than anything else, and yet are the worst things to pair with food, just because of the bitterness. Now that makes them delicious on their own. They're kind of a composed dish of sorts, but when you do it with food, that bitterness is going to overwhelm just about everything on the palate. That said, the things that do work well: fatty, protein, rich, salty. So if you've got like a bucket of fried chicken, that's going to be awesome with this. You know what I mean? You've got this bitterness balancing the salt. You've got the fat. Yeah, exactly. You're getting bigger. You got the fat and richness of the fry, but also the chicken to kind of subsume the bitterness, make the beer taste a little softer on the palate. And then, of course, cheeses of all sorts. The harder, the better. Aged cheddar is unbelievable. But I will say that contrary to on the other side, people try to force IPAs and pale ales, I think, because they're so popular, and then you end up saying IPAs and pale ales with spicy food, which doesn't work, because bitterness makes spice even hotter, in my opinion. I don't like that much. Or they say, you know, with really, with not even just hot food, but just anything that's got like a cool aromatic of tropical fruit or spice and pine like we find here. But, you know, if you have a Vietnamese dish that's delicate, it's gonna get overwhelmed by the bitterness. So just be careful with hops, and be okay with just drinking IPAs for the most part on the side. And then maybe look to some other styles for actual pairings.
This is a rich reward all by itself. You got a question for Greg? What's your favorite type of food? What kind of beer would go best with it? Ask Greg. The email is beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Greg, we thank you as always.
My pleasure.
Everyone, please do always drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.